Yep, I got 6.
All right. So, it being 6 o'clock, April 13th, Wednesday, 2022, I'll call the Finance Committee meeting to order. This meeting is being taped by Cable Access Oxford, and Mr. King is going to be taping the meeting as well. He's coming. He just gave me a note that he, not to announce that he would be back in a few minutes to tape the meeting. So rather than interrupt the meeting, I'll just announce it now that he will be here. Meantime, we're going to go ahead with the meeting, and the first item on the agenda is the approval of April 6th minutes. If everybody's had an opportunity to look, review, and if there are no comments or questions or changes, I'll entertain a motion to accept.
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right.
Unanimous. All right, next item on the agenda is Reschedule Oxford Free Library, and we have Brittany with us, I hope. Yes, we do. There she is. Our head librarian.
Hi, everybody. I'm Brittany McDougall-Biley.
Right.
I'm here to present this evening's meeting, and I just want to say thank you for allowing me to reschedule to this week. Right. So just a quick overview of the library's mission statement for those who are new or those who are tuning in at home. The mission of the Oxford Free Public Library is to serve the recreational, educational, and informational needs of adults, teens, and children in our community by providing a cultural meeting place that encompasses historical archives to current technology. Some of our fiscal year 22 accomplishments: we implemented the new fine-free policy at the library that began on July 1st, 2021 to promote equity. We began updating the library's website for a more modern and user-friendly experience. We hope to roll this out by the end of this fiscal year. Last year, we focused a bit on the restructuring of the library, and with that, we created the new position, Cataloging and Technology Librarian, and filled the position in August of 2021. The Board of Trustees, along with myself, continue to review and implement new policies for the library. And in this picture, you can see our brand new door. That was part of our preservation grant that we received last fiscal year. All right, some of our goals for fiscal year 23. Since COVID began, we've seen a large increase of our digital services. So we think with this new platform, Canopy, we think it's going to be very beneficial to our patrons. It's actually a streaming service where people can watch movies. They can also access the Greater Courses series, which is very educational and informational. So we're excited to roll that out next fiscal year. We're also looking to expand the Library of Things collection at the library. Currently, we offer wireless hotspots so people can access internet from home or anywhere that they may be going. We also offer a telescope that people can check out for a week at a time. We have a lot of other things. We have Kindles. We're looking into possibly getting even a digital camera for people to experience, see if they want to create a new hobby. So we're looking to do that. We're going to be implementing regular tours of the downstairs museum and create a virtual tour for our website. This has been a goal of ours for a while, but COVID has kind of postponed everything just because we weren't open our regular hours. And then one of our volunteers who helps us with that isn't quite ready to be out in public yet. So we're going to be working on that next fiscal year, so we're excited about that. I'll discuss this a little bit in our library budget request, but we are hoping to create a part-time position for a daytime clerk to ensure proper staffing throughout the year. And again, we'll continue to review, revise, and implement new policies for the library. Well, it's a little hard to say. But what we've been up to this year, from July 1st, this goes until March 1st, the statistics. So far this year, we've held 26 virtual story times where 462 people have participated. We've offered 135 programs with about 1,380 patrons in attendance. Our ebook checkout so far has been 3,693, and our audiobook downloads has been 2,738 checkouts. And our Ancestry.com skyrocketed with statistics with 1,699 uses for search. Let's see. For items checked out so far this year, we're at 40,095 library items checked out. Compared to last year, this has doubled only because we're now at full operating services. We're open our full hours, and everything is accessible to our patrons now. And then so far this year, we've added 2,370 books to our collection and 326 audio-visual items added to the collection. Now into the budget. So you will see our services and supplies line items are level funded compared to last fiscal year. So our only request this year is in the salary line items. These increases include the COLA increase that takes effect July 1st as voted on by the Personnel Board, I believe. Is that right, Katie? Okay. So with that, we are asking for a new part-time position. It's 15 hours a week for a daytime circulation clerk. After having done some restructuring almost a year ago, we have found that there is a slight shortage of staff. This position will ensure we have ample coverage, especially when staff are out due to illness, family emergencies, and vacation. We're also asking for a slight increase of hours in our part-time position line item, which is the second one highlighted there. Again, this will help with coverage. For safety reasons, we like to have at least 2 people on each level of the library. So these 2 additions to our budget would help us achieve that. I do also want to note that this budget request falls in line with the municipal appropriation requirements set forth by the Massachusetts Library Board of Commissioners. So I don't foresee us needing to apply for a waiver or anything like that. That is pretty much it for our budget request. Not too much there, but does anybody have any questions?
Yes, Joe?
What is, or can you explain what is the,
Municipal appropriation
Thank
requirements.
you very much. Thank you.
The MAR, as we call it for shorter terms. So the Library Board of Commissioners for the state, they have an equation that we need to follow every year. We need to be in line with it. It's about, our budget needs to be 16% materials requirement spending, which this again would cover that just fine. In the past 2 years, we didn't meet the requirement only because of due to COVID, we had that big budget cut. But we've gradually increased it over the past 2 years. So with this, we won't have to apply for a waiver. We've been granted the waiver the past 2 years, so we've received our state funding, which is excellent. But it's just an equation that the state does just so we, stay on track and, that there's no major cuts to the library budget. That's their
Okay, and if you fall short, then that's when you can,
Yep,
your
that's when we
state
apply
funding
for a
is in
waiver.
jeopardy.
Yes,
Okay.
yep.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
So you're at 5 full-time and 7 part-time, a total of 13 heads, if that's what I counted here.
10.
10?
Yep.
Well, you're looking for, is it 3 more then?
We're looking
Part-time?
for,
Down here.
hang on.
1.5 and 1.25.
1 1/4, yeah.
So 2.75?
Yeah, something like that, right. 3 bodies. Oh, 0.75, I don't know.
I think that actually might be wrong. I'm thinking.
Well, I think we have the
Um,
4 pages, maybe that's part of it.
That's down to 4
Oh, so it
part-time
used
pages.
to be, so it would actually, so we have 3 pages currently.
Yeah.
So we would just be adding about 10 hours, so it wouldn't quite be 4 full pages. So it's like asking for
Adjusting the
3/4 of a
hours.
person.
Okay, so you're playing with the
Put it in
hours,
funny
4
terms.
bodies, but
Yes.
less hours,
Yes.
not each one's gonna.
Yep, yep.
So so the total increase in salaries is 33,804, 10.56%, I think. 353,951 versus 320,147 budgeted to FY22.
Yes, and then that includes the COLA increase
That includes
as well.
your step in and COLA increases, right?
Yep,
Based on the new personnel.
yep.
Is your children's librarian position an open position?
Nope, we have our children's librarian there now.
Oh, okay,
Yep.
It was open, but now it's not, right?
okay.
Nope, she's been with us the whole time.
One year it was,
One was listed as unfilled.
yeah, one was listed
Oh.
unfilled. Yeah, here it is, adult circulation is unfilled.
But it says unfilled.
Children's.
Oh, so that was a previous position. Actually, we should mark that out. We no longer have that position.
So you
So the
eliminated.
cataloging technology library, and it kind of morphed into that position, so that line should be taken out.
Okay, all right. So you eliminated a position basically through
Yep,
automation?
due to COVID and whatnot, that was the time that we took to restructure the library to see what we really needed and what we could get, the most out of the position.
And then the one that you talked about down here, the new position requested is for the part-time
Yes.
circulation clerk.
Yep.
I got that. That's 11,770.
Yep.
Okay.
So does the person that is now functioning in the children's library, is that person like doing the programming and all of that type of stuff for the
Yep, so we
children's?
have our full-time children's librarian, she handles all the programming, and then we also have our storytime
Oh.
clerk who does just solely story time.
Oh, okay, I see
Yep.
what it is. Thank you.
You're
I
welcome.
have her here, Debbie, at 35 hours?
Yep.
Yeah,
I
right.
see that. Thank you.
All right, so this will be the addition. And then you, like you just talked to us about the reduction previously.
Yep.
All right, so it's kind of like shifting as things automate.
Yes, yep.
Any other questions of Brittany on the budget? All right,
And
well, thank you,
I
Brittany.
did include some photos for highlights if you wanted to see. Some cute little faces. That was when we opened back up to our full hours on the left. That was us honoring our friend's president, Jan Chesties. She was there. And then some kiddos with the programming. And then, Halloween town manager with our scarecrow.
Oh,
It
yeah.
was Scary Potter, we named him. Harry Potter scarecrow. So, but yeah, that was it.
Seems
Thank
like
you.
it's well used during the day as far as the,
Yes, we've definitely picked up since we've increased our hours, so it's
see, I
it's
could
nice
just
to
tell
be
by
back
the
to
parking
normal.
spaces over there. And now
Yeah.
you're going to start doing something down in the basement with all the,
Yep, so we've had some building issues downstairs that have been
Yes.
handled. So we're looking to get that back open. We
a
actually
lot of
have
history down there.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, we're excited to open up the museum especially again, so people
Yeah.
can enjoy
Sad to
tours.
see it just sitting there and
Right.
not being appreciated.
Yeah, we're gonna amp it up. So,
Great.
yeah.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Ellie Flynn, our Animal Control Officer.
Good
Ellie?
evening. I was gonna say, can you make that a little bigger?
Well,
No.
unfortunately, it's in portrait mode because that is how the GFOA document is mostly in portrait mode, so. This is
And-
Kelly's page of that, which she did give us the information for and work hard on, so I figured we should highlight that.
I'm not the most technically evolved person around, and so I thank you for helping me
Oh, I also
out.
want you to see it, so you
Yeah,
can see
yeah.
how it's gonna look.
So, as you can see, our mission statement, the mission of the Animal Control Department is to protect the health and safety of our residents and to protect the animals and promote their humane treatment. And it gives a few ways that we try to do that on a daily and weekly basis. We try to work with the community. We really try to stress education a lot because we get a lot of questions about wildlife or, why do I have to license my dog? And we try to give the pros and cons. We get sometimes people question why they have to license their cat because we're one of the few towns that does do that. And my understanding of that is, I know to this day, we still have a lot of rabies in the wildlife. Like, one of the highest towns for positive testing animals in Massachusetts. And I think when they originally made that law, it was because they had quite a few incidences. I think they had a couple of foxes that actually bit people. And then I know that we had some farm animals on Lyman Road that tested positive for rabies, which is pretty rare. So because cats go in and out all the time, the only way to really monitor if they are up to date on the rabies and stuff is to have them licensed and everything, so.
And you can scroll through.
I was gonna- oh, how do
I think arrow over.
There you go.
You can see your-
So these were our accomplishments last year, which, I feel like we couldn't do everything that we really wanted to do because of COVID. So we tried to, we did enhance our data gathering. So all of our calls are broken down into, dog calls, cat calls, wildlife, farm animals, bites, or other. So it gives people a little better idea of what do they do? Because people really don't know what we do, or they have the wrong idea of what we do. So we try to educate them that we're here for the animals. We don't just pick things up and you know, the days of the old dog catcher are long gone, and every animal that's healthy enough and their disposition is good enough, we find a home for them. We really go out of our way. We work with other rescue groups and stuff like that. We couldn't do a lot of in-person training. As a matter of fact, we were supposed to have the Animal Control Officers Academy in Oxford at the police station, and we weren't able to do that because of COVID, but they're scheduled again for this fall. So we really believe in training and educating ourselves so we can better serve the community. So we did do online training as much as we could. I actually did one earlier today about wildlife, so.
You can file over again too, if you want a few pages.
I'm sorry, what?
You have a few pages, so you can.
Okay, yeah. And like I said, we work with different rescue groups to find homes for all the animals. We had this past year, we had a lot more feral kittens than we normally do. We got, I was getting like maybe 1 litter a year, which is pretty incredible. But this past year, we had probably like 6 litters, which was a lot for us. But if we can catch the kittens young enough, we can tame them and they get homes. So sometimes the mother, if she's totally feral, we get her spayed through no cost to the town. There's a voucher program through the state, so we get a voucher for spay and neuter and a rabies shot and a distemper. And then they go back out to wherever we pick them up from, because that's their home, you know. I don't know what happened.
So
right
the
there.
state pays for that on the feral
There's
cats?
a fund called the Mass Animal Fund, which is actually raised, but you can donate money when you do your taxes. And their primary goal is to spay and neuter stray animals or feral animals.
Is that new?
It's about, I'd say maybe 8 years old now, something
Really?
like that. So I actually teach for them, because their other thing that
We
they.
should have known about it, because we had 2 litters of feral cats on our property. My
Oh,
wife paid to have them all spayed and then taken
Wow.
care of. I
wow.
got the vet bill, so I didn't know about this program.
Yeah.
They
So-
usually clip their ear too.
Yeah, I didn't know about this program. That's very interesting.
They
We
also-
paid for that, which is very, cat lover and
Yeah.
very,
But
very
it's
concerned. And
expensive,
so
yeah.
we caught them all, and
Yep.
then I think she gave them to you or somebody with some food and blankets and stuff. And I think they went out to a farm or someplace, or you found homes for them. As you were saying, if they
yeah,
were
yeah.
adopted.
So-
Little kittens, yeah.
Right. So the primary thing the Mass Animal Fund does is spay-neuter program. They also do training for animal control officers throughout the state, and I'm one of the trainers for that, for them. So,
Interesting.
So we also work really hard to get as many dogs and cats licensed as we possibly can. Our numbers went up a lot from when I first started. They were, I think, around 12 to 1,500 dogs a year, and they're up over 2,000 now. So we did 2,000, I think it was 124 or something last year, dogs. We did have, there was.
Yeah, the light one, the 2,145, it went up from 1,541 in FY '20.
Well, and the only reason it wasn't as high in FY '20 is because the courts were closed for a while. So
Okay, all
we
right.
had filed in court
Yeah,
for the people that hadn't licensed yet, and actually they made twice, we tried to schedule that, the court scheduled it, and then it had to be canceled because of COVID. So we weren't able to follow up with everybody in 2020, but this year we did. There was some challenges with that because they moved us from the Dudley District Court, which was nice and handy, and you can go and park, and it doesn't cost a fortune, and it's close. But they moved us to the Worcester Housing Court, which the court itself was fine, but it was just, it was a lot more travel and expense. And anyway, that was a little bit more difficult. But we followed through with every single person. I think I have one person that still hasn't licensed their cat or dog, that we know of. You know, there might be some people that we don't know about, but. We also, we're working on our disaster response preparedness. We actually had a MOU with a group called, oh my God, I'm having a mental blank here, but a group in Massachusetts that helps prepare for disasters and stuff like that. The town has not signed we don't have one right now with them, which we may do again in the future. But they had MOUs with a lot of different towns, so if there was like some kind of widespread disaster,
Right.
that would have been tough for them to handle all those towns. So we realized that we really need to have at least a core preparedness. And then if it gets beyond that, like if we have something really, huge, then we would have to get help from the state or whatever. But Ed actually has done a lot of disaster rescue. He works part-time for IFA, it's called, International Fund of Animal Welfare. So if they have a big disaster, like the wildfires, he went out to California. He just recently got back from the Ukraine-Poland border. And he usually does maybe 2 weeks a year. They do take him for 2 weeks at a time. So usually it's once or maybe twice that he goes to something like that. But anyway, we're working on that together.
Is there some kind of a regional thing you're putting together?
No, right now it would be just for our town.
Okay.
But we do, occasionally I attend the meetings, or Ed does, for the Tri-Epic, which is, originally it was 3 towns, so they called it Tri-Epic, but now I think there's like 7 towns that are involved in that. It's Charlton, Oxford, Southbridge, I think Dudley, I think there's like 7 altogether. Anyway, we occasionally attend that, so that would maybe be a more regional one, but right now we're just concentrating on having enough to shelter animals in Oxford if we were to have, some kind of either natural disaster or maybe, God forbid, like, a fire at Orchard Hill, or like a large apartment complex or something like that. Facebook page, I have not gotten too far on that. We had a Facebook page before that had a different administrator that no longer works for the town. And I was trying to get into that and set it back up on that Facebook page, and I was advised that the best thing for me to do is to just start all over again and set up a new Facebook page. Right now, I utilize Oxford Mass Residence Forum and the Oxford, Thompson, Connecticut, Webster, blah, blah, blah. Like, especially if we have, like, for instance, today I picked up a dog on Main Street. Actually, a kind person picked up a dog on Main Street that was loose, a little like Puggle. And I posted him. I haven't heard, nobody's called me so far on him, but that works really, really well if we have a missing dog or a found dog. Yeah, people see that in, or cat for that matter.
I know Ring does that too. They have alerts and stuff. They tell people in the neighborhood if there's.
Do they really? Ring does? Oh, I didn't know that. What if there's like a sighting on somebody's
If
camera?
there's a bear in your neighborhood, or
Oh,
if
that's
there's a
interesting.
lost dog, Ring will notify and gives you an alert, and it tells you where you are and location where it was or
Yeah,
is.
yeah,
And whether it's a lost animal or a wild, say a bear,
yeah.
in someone's backyard, so you can,
It's still-
coyotes.
Yeah.
Anything that would maybe be a nuisance or a threat to somebody in the
Sure.
neighborhood. Ring does that. I don't know how you would tap that in. Maybe
Yeah,
you could.
I
Broaden
don't know
that.
anything about that, but I'll look
Have to put
into
that
it.
up. So if I had a lost dog, I would put it on my Ring app,
Right.
and then the people that have Ring and are signed up in my area would get a ping.
Wow,
So
Yeah.
if I saw a bear walking across the camera, I could say, oh, there's a bear in the neighborhood,
Yeah.
and then
yeah,
it
Yeah,
would
if you have the
ping
camera
everybody.
set up, it'll actually take a picture.
Yep.
right,
Yeah, so you visual too, so it's not just,
Yeah,
there's,
videos.
yeah,
if it's a lost dog or a cat or whatever, you could post a picture. So I don't know how that would tie into your Facebook, but there may be a way to broaden that,
right.
tap into that.
I know we do utilize that some, like, different cameras. There might not all be Ring cameras, but if there's, seems to be a more, it's happening more, is people are adopting dogs, like, from down south, and some of them are not well socialized, and they get up here and they're brand new, and somehow they get loose. So they don't even know where their home is. Some of them have, if they really lived outside all the time anyway, a lot of them, and so that can be a really, really difficult situation. And we work with Missing Dogs of Massachusetts. It's an organization that has traps, and they have cameras too that they put out. But once that's posted, if people catch that dog on their camera at their house, they notify Missing Mass Dogs or us, we work together. So it still is a little strange to me when I like knock on somebody's door and then all of you hear a voice, you know, like, can I help you? But it's good, then I don't have to leave a note and wait for them to call me back, so. And again, just said that ACOM, so Animal Control Officers Association of Massachusetts, is hosting their annual training this year in Oxford at the police station. It's a 14-day academy that you're not required by the state to attend that academy, but most police departments or towns, if they have a full-time person, they send them to the academy. And it's an excellent academy, so I'm looking forward to that.
Now, when is that happening?
It's going to be most of September. It's going to be 2 days a week, Wednesdays and Fridays, and about 3/4 of the way through October. And then we have our graduation at the end of October.
Thank you.
Okay, let's see. So these are some of the things that we are working on for this year, next year.
Yeah, 426.
The whole
And
lot.
there's 3 different years on that.
I know, I know.
It's a lot.
We have also been going to the dog park a lot because there have been a few issues at the dog park. I mean, for the most part, I think it's going pretty well. Most people love it. Occasionally there's, people that have dogs that are really like unruly and they don't do anything to stop their dog from like jumping on all the other dogs or whatever. And my understanding is that they're going to be putting cameras in there very shortly, which I think would be very helpful, because some people don't pick up after their dogs and stuff like that. But I mean, for the most part, I think people really enjoy it. So we try to reach out to everybody, and when we go, we chat with people, and sometimes we check licenses and stuff like that. And one thing we're very concerned about is when young children are inside the dog park with all the dogs that they don't even know. So that could be a really bad situation. So we're doing that. We still intend on working on that. And going to the schools, that was something I was really excited about, doing a program presentation to the schools. And again, it got canceled because of COVID, but I did reach out to the schools again, and we're planning on going this May to Chaffee School and Clara Barton, talk to the principals there and doing a presentation with the kids. So I think that would be a lot of fun. And I think that's,
You can go to the budget, I think that's
Okay.
probably the next one. Hey.
so most of our budget stayed the same. The salaries went up a little bit due to cost of living and step raises. The only thing I was a little bit concerned about on here, because of the costs of heating fuel and stuff right now, I did check with Osterman's, and so far we're at right around $2,400, and they'll probably get one more delivery maybe, so I don't know if I'm a little short on that.
Well, you do have the revolving fund, so at
Yeah.
least you have a safety.
I have like
net.
yeah, exactly.
So I'm not too worried about it.
Okay. And everything else we left the same.
So salaries are up $5,046 basically over FY '22.
Yes, between the two of us,
And that's
yeah.
just step and
In-
COLA increases, which we hadn't had for the last couple of years.
Yeah.
I think the last 2 years we didn't do it. So it was frozen with COVID. Any questions? Kelly? Very good, Kelly.
I have a question, but it's not related to the budget.
Okay.
I live at the end of Rocky Hill Road,
Mhm.
and my wife is one of those walkers that walks 7 miles a day. And since COVID, in that area, in Greenbrier area, the number of people that are walking is just incredible. My observation is, because I've lived on that street for about 40 years, we're not hearing the howling and the screaming of animals during the night that we used to always hear. Have they moved somewhere else because of the number of people that are, there's a lot of people that walk those.
Right. And a lot of them walk with dogs too. So
Yeah.
that could be a deterrent for, other animals. So the screaming usually would be foxes, coyotes make more of a howl. Foxes make a really god-awful noise.
Yeah.
And
Fisher cats.
people think it's always fisher cats, but most of the time they're probably hearing foxes, because there is more foxes than there are fisher cats. But it could be fisher cats, because they make a really weird scream too. But I don't know, we had a bumper crop of foxes last year, so I don't know if they moved out of there and moved to other parts of the town, but,
We have them in our,
we had a lot of fox calls last year. And I think because we had so many rabbits for a couple of years, I don't know if anybody noticed that, but they were like all over the place. So there's a lot of prey for them. We did have one coyote last year in that area that was following people walking their dogs.
Yes.
And she actually, at the end of, I'm trying to remember what street it is. It's up off of Rocky Hill, but there's another little road that goes off. Anyway, there was a dog that got picked up by a coyote, and fortunately got away from the coyote and ran home. It was injured, but it was okay. It ended up being okay. But I did report it to the Department of Fisheries and Wildlife, and the environmental police came out and looked. They were pretty sure she must have had a den in the area and was protecting her young, and so when she saw a dog, she was following them, but it's kind of disconcerting when you're the person walking the dog. But typically, if you just yell and scream, they'll usually go the other way.
Yeah, I just wondered, because it was so common for us to hear all this
Yeah.
noise. And, my wife and her walking group, they don't see any animals except a few dogs here and there, so I wondered
Yep.
if they were in another part of town now.
Well, they're on Sutton Ave, because we have all the coyotes.
Oh.
I see them during the day, actually.
Yeah.
we have foxes in our backyard. Turkeys, foxes.
Yeah.
you
Lots
name
of
it.
turkeys,
A lot of
yeah.
turkeys,
Yeah.
yeah.
We have owls too, actually,
Yeah,
recently
owls,
moved
yeah.
in.
We have a whole wooded back area, so that's,
Right.
and that's why we got the feral cats. And then they were in our stone walls. They had a little nest in the stone walls in between the crevices.
Yeah.
So, I haven't seen those. But now that I know there's funding,
That's right.
Now you won't pay up front next time.
we'll be paying those vet bills. Well, all right, thank you, Kelly.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Kelly.
Katie's up next. Katie McKenna,
I know, it's
Finance
been a
Director.
long time to get here, huh?
Saved the best for last.
Yeah, well, thank you so much. So I didn't put together a fancy PowerPoint either. I figured since I've been working on this GFOA document that I would kind of share that with you all. And I don't, I think you pretty much know we're boring in our accounting department. So there's really, I mean, we handle the payables and, we work on the budget. We visit with you guys twice a year. We do all our state reporting. So that's, it's not too much exciting. So our accomplishments are going to be pretty much based around those kind of things, the free cash submittal, having a successful audit, and, for 21, there was also different COVID-19 grants that we had to work with, so that was very different too. And we get a lot of advisories from the state, and they tell us, okay, this is how you're going to do this is how you're going to do that, and it was changing all the time. It was crazy. And now we have ARPA, so we're dealing with that, and those regulations have changed a couple times as well. And so in 21, we also created the financial policies and procedures document and completed the GFOA document. So it was a big year. 22, we hope to do all the same things, as well as 23. I have some departmental trends. You've probably heard from the town manager about the free cash, which I don't expect to be as high. Well, free cash is in the middle. Stabilization funds are better, capital stabilization, OPEB. But I don't expect our free cash numbers to be as large as they were. And a lot of that was reserves that, not reserves, but rather spending that didn't take place. Though when we get into local receipts, I'll talk a little bit more about how some of that will contribute to free cash, even in this fiscal year. So there's some statistics. And then this is the accounting budget, which is just me and Trish. And we have the audit services, and we don't have a lot of supplies or travel, but we have a pretty simple budget. So I don't know if you have any questions on that budget, because I'm going to just kind of move forward through to the next one.
Well, accounting's just up
It's pretty
$9,000, $9,000, 3.9% if you want to round it. And basically, most of that is salary adjustments,
Right.
$7,400.
Right, and I'll talk about the pay plan a little bit, but there was the 3% COLA adjustment for fiscal '23, but I'll get into that as we go forward. I don't have a slide on it, but I'll
I
talk
know,
a little bit
I
more.
spoke with your auditor was in when I was in, and we're, my background being dealing with auditors. I know you dealt with, went very smoothly and saves money. I know, if you can go from an audit to a review or, and get an and have them render an opinion, that's great. If you can cut the audit hours down, the auditing budget.
Right, well, I guess initially, when they started here, so Roselli and Clark started with the fiscal, I believe it was 18 budget, because I started here in 2017, and it was their first year, so taking on a new budget, you don't know what you're getting yourself into, or, I mean, not a new budget, rather, a new client, a new
Right.
town with,
Due diligence.
but they said it was actually taking them less hours than they had predicted, so we did go down in our
Right.
costs over the years, which was great. The other item that's in that professional services is the actuarial study that we do every year now for OPEB. But the cost that went down was the audit. So that was nice.
Always nice.
And this year, we didn't have a management letter. I mean, he did, this is Terenzio, our auditor, said he could give us, some advisories. Those are usually,
Yeah, there was no recommendations or changes.
right, there's no
You don't have
material
any-
findings.
Find any fault in anything that you were doing. Like I said, that's what you're always the chief for when you're
Right, right.
head of finance.
If you, things go smoothly, accounting can be very boring, which is good. So we'll just keep it boring.
Sounds good.
So the other department that I oversee directly is the information technology. And as you know, the salaries, we did have 2 people in those roles. The fiscal '20 actual was reflective of a partial year because the IT director retired
Right.
halfway through that year.
December, yeah, fiscal year.
So next year, that actual will go away and we won't have those salary lines there at all. So we've moved those over to consultants, and I think that the model has worked really well. I know that there probably are folks that miss having someone to take care of their paper jams and such, but, I think that money is better spent. What happens is someone will have an issue, they contact me. If it's small, I kind of walk through it, did you turn your computer off? Did you unplug it? Just do those few little troubleshooting ideas, and if I can't, if it's not simple, I pass it on. And most things get handled fairly quickly, so,
They remote in.
and they can remote
They
in.
don't have to physically come here. They remote
Right.
into that screen and they fix whatever the issue is.
Sometimes if it's, someone inadvertently clicked on something and there's a problem with the computer, I'm able to take that away and hook up another one for them. So we work together on that. So I think the model has worked really well. Our copiers, so we went into a new contract with the copiers. We're going to be going into our 3rd year for fiscal '23, which was a lot of fun working over COVID, trying to get new copiers. So that's in the equipment maintenance line. So we lease the copiers. And we've managed to get some of those costs down because the initial contracts were for 5 years, which never went to town meeting, so they technically weren't valid contracts. So we're able to get out of those, get into new 3-year contracts with no overages. So everything is covered. So there's no guessing as to what the budget will be. So it's been
The
it's been
fixed
good.
costs, not per
Yes,
level. You
exactly.
exceed so many, then you go to another.
Yeah, we were getting hit all the time. Actually, I would say that we have, I'll say, an initiative here where we use a lot less paper than we used to. I think folks here before used a lot of paper. I mean, even just sending out memos, and instead of, send it as an email, then send it as a paper memo, and we do a lot less of that. So I think those costs will be going down in the future as well.
Excuse me. Do these contracts include maintenance of the copiers?
They do, and
So that
toner,
So we're not incurring
right?
what used to be, at some point, some type of a maintenance contract separate
Well,
or something?
yeah, right, it's not separate, it's
Yeah.
part of it. It's all inclusive, so it's maintenance, toner, and the copiers themselves.
Toner, maintenance, and all- everything but paper.
Right, exactly, exactly. So hardware, we don't know what we're going to use from time to time, but actually I will say we did just, Kelly mentioned the dog park cameras. And then over at Carbuncle, they had cameras through American Alarm, and most of our cameras are done now through our IT consultant, and he has it in the network, so he's able to tap into it through the network, which is great. It's very useful and efficient. So when Shelley over at Carbuncle OCC, she was saying that she was going to contact American Alarm for new cameras. I said, well, let's talk to our consultant. And since that, we are getting new cameras there, but we're also got Carbuncle on our network. It wasn't prior to that, it was not on our network, so it had a separate bill. It had phones that weren't on our network either. So these are the kind of things that can kind of crop up during the year, and we can use this budget for that. So we've used some of it under professional services, some under hardware. So I wanted to highlight that.
Are the cameras on a cloud-based network? You just mentioned that they're on the same network. Did you mean financially speaking or like access?
They're like our
accessibility?
town, our network, so our server.
Okay.
I'm not sure, I don't think it's cloud-based. I think they
So
log
they-
into an IP, but I'm not sure how it's stored,
Yeah.
because I don't get into that. I just know that it's on the network and it's great. So I
Okay.
don't have access to it,
Okay.
and I don't set it up, but, I'm trying to make sure that I get
Talking to the dispatchers, the chief of police, about networking all that, so that all becomes a role of the dispatchers, so the eyes are, so
No,
everything is uniform.
I think they have access to some cameras, but I don't think it's all of them,
Well, that's what
right?
we're talking about.
Right,
They're
right.
moving towards unification, as we had.
We
cameras,
definitely
so
are.
that the dispatchers that would be part of their role. So whether it's at Rule Field or at the dog park, like Kelly was mentioning.
Right.
They want to add cameras. They want to make sure that it's all encompassing.
We're trying to get them all on the same.
All on the
yeah.
same page, right?
So it's working well. On the next page, I'm going to go down and I'll show you a lot of the software we have and the cost, because it's quite expansive, so I thought it would be interesting to look at. But before I do that, I did want to point out that, the fiscal 17 budget was $662,000 for IT, so we've managed to keep it down, and, I'm fairly proud of that. When I came in, I saw some costs that were high, but to be fair, the town manager that was here had already noticed that at the time too. So, we worked, and then as Jen came along, we all worked on all of this. So it's been great, getting things more manageable and being able to give that to other departments that need it. So here is the list of software and the estimates for fiscal '23. I don't have all of the exact numbers, but some of them are, close to whatever they were last year. So, some of them are easily recognizable, like Adobe, Avast, that's the security software. Some of them, I'm not sure what they all are. Cemetery Find would be for the cemetery. Central Square, that's all the police stuff. Oh, no, I'm sorry, fire. Central Square is fire. So those are all the fire softwares. And actually, and police, fire and police. They each have their own. That name keeps changing every year, too. DLT, the AutoCAD, that's, for DPW. Dude Solutions, the facility software. There's just so many. You go down towards the bottom, we have Vadar, the $49,000. That is our accounting software. So this is everything. pretty
Software
much.
total, $244,000, it's up $4,000 over prior FY '22.
Yeah, it seems like there's always something else that comes
Less than
aboard.
2%. Well, yeah.
And I put in the 15,000 for miscellaneous because like something comes up, either the cost could go slightly over or somebody comes in with something that, we didn't plan for. So it's very helpful to have a little cushion. That's a big part of the budget. So thought I would highlight that.
Yeah, it's half of it.
But did you have any other questions on IT or any questions?
Any questions? Anybody?
Do you guys use an electronic signature software?
I'm not sure what is used. I know that we have, some of us have electronic signature, that's, you can copy and paste, but Adobe does have something you can use as well. So I know from time to time, someone may send us something and that's how we sign it, but there's no standard right now. And
Okay.
plus, we're all in person, so for the most part, we're doing everything, with ink.
DocuSign is what you're referring to.
Yeah, we don't have that, but we would
Which is
use,
what we used, DocuSign. Yeah.
Yeah, well, and Adobe works as well,
Oh,
but
yeah.
you want to keep your signature
Right,
validation
right,
pages
right.
and keep things up to
DocuSign
date.
does a great job on that.
Yeah.
Yeah, we use that quite a bit.
Yep.
It's not overly expensive, it's not but.
It'll be something else.
Always.
No,
yeah.
it's just something that, but the fact that you have a consultant that's
Well, and-
is challenged, that stay cutting edge.
Yeah.
That's their job.
So
Their
we have-
focus is to be up to date on whatever the software is.
Yep.
As opposed to being, like myself, I would have to be constantly, and you listed, this way, you get more efficiency out of them, because that's their job. You're one of their
Agreed.
customers. They have to be on their toes
Agreed.
with every software that they support,
And we have two vendors, so we have a consultant that handles the fire and police, because, public safety is a different animal than town hall, which is more like an office. So we have fire and police separate from the rest of the town. So DPW, town hall, carbuncle, OCC, library, senior center, we're all in the same, we all have the same vendor, but police and fire have their own. And they're just different, so it's good that we've been able to do that. And I think everyone's fairly happy. So, the other budget that our department oversees quite a bit of is Memorial Hall. Trish handles the supplies, so that's a big part of the Memorial Hall budget. We have a supply closet where the town departments can go to get their pens and their notepads and their stickies, pretty much whatever they need. And
Really, everything's,
it's pretty level. Postage had been going up, particularly with the mail-in voting, so there was a little bit of that going on. So where fiscal '23 is a little below fiscal '21 actual, so we'll see how it all goes. But being a bottom line budget, I know this year anyway, we should be okay.
so it's up 5,000 over FY '22, 40 to 45.
Yeah.
And equipment maintenance is up 8 over FY '22, 25 from 17. So that's 11,000 right there. And then the other is, the town manager requested another floating, some more, expanding the floating clerk at town hall.
Right.
One more person, so it went from 35 to 65.
And it could be one person, it could be two people. I think it depends on what departmental needs are.
Well, I know it's worked well. I hear somebody out there by the name of Cindy that's, if she's listening, everybody sings her praises. So,
Is the intent to cover or reduce the overtime hours with the additional staff or the additional time?
Well, the overtime hasn't really been used. It's kind of been a cushion,
so many things that are seasonal. Every department has some seasonality to it, whether it's dog licenses or excise tax, so every department. So instead of having somebody there and you get the peaks and valleys, you level it all out with a floater. And then, of course, it helps with vacations, because then you get somebody that's kind of knows a little bit about this, a little bit about that they can fill in, so that that person comes back from sick or vacation. They're not regretting them having taken that vacation, because the work just piles up, that somebody's nipping at it while they're gone, and it balances it out. I know that works well. I mean, I was always an advocate of that, where I managed businesses, that we had that, because there's always some seasonality in some departments, so it
It's
levels
true.
it out.
That's true. And the overtime, I think the intention was there was a clerk that kind of floated between a couple departments. I think
Right.
that was there for that. So we haven't used it, but that's where I don't worry so much about, my postage budget might be too low. Well, I have that. Like, my electricity may be too low. Well, I know that's there. So being the bottom line budget, it kind of flows through. And so that's where that
So
is.
the total increase is about $41,000 on Memorial Hall, which is basically the 30,000 of that is the addition of the hours for a floating clerk and postage and supplies.
Right.
For 8 and 5, a total of 11. So there's your 40 right there.
Not too exciting, huh?
Chairman,
No, but,
Let's get all the boring ones tonight.
go ahead. Jen.
could I just go back to the information
Oh, sure.
technology budget quickly?
Yeah.
When a new piece of software is rolled out, or an update to existing software or anything like that, who handles the training for any of those individuals that are using the new stuff?
The department handles that. So each department kind of handles their own software. So the assessors have vision software for their real estate assessments. So the assessor would handle working with vision to get the training for his staff. If you have the building department and they're looking at new software potentially in the future, or their current software, depending on which it is, new or future new or current, they would reach out to their vendor and get the training. So each department that handles their own software, like Trish and I handle the accounting software, and we tend to do our own training on folks. So we get training from the software company itself. We get a webinar, but then we roll out our own training to different departments that use the software. So generally, it's by department.
So let's say, so then if you're getting new software or an update, the head of the department would probably interface with the vendor
Generally,
and
yes.
pretty much learn how to use it, and then that individual would train the department? Or would you have the vendor come in, and
Sometimes
if
it's
there's
a-
3 people,
The
do
vendor,
a training session for
It may-
all of them so that they can all ask questions and everything else?
the vendor, sometimes they go to a place that maybe there's a training session happening that is put on by the vendor, so sometimes it's off-site, sometimes the vendor will come on-site, and sometimes, in the case of their accounting software, we'll get the training and then we'll pass it along ourselves to folks.
Yeah, a lot of the vendors have workshops, regional workshops.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, so, moderator and finance committee, there are no changes here, so I don't know if you, I want to make sure that we had this in front of us before we vote on budgets, but
Yeah.
this is,
Moderator's $1,800, or, yeah, $1,800, and ours is 101. And the 100 is the contingency that we have as a reserve, should anything go awry
right,
during the fiscal year. That they would have to come for us, present their request, and then we'd have to approve it.
right, and we may be coming forward to you, I think, for a few things, so I think we have to talk about that first, because we have other avenues we can use, but we'll see. It's a possibility that we might be having a meeting at some point to do something like that, so.
But that's what that's there for.
Yep, exactly.
Past year, we didn't use it.
Right, I think it's been a couple of years.
It's been a couple of years. And that goes back to
It does.
free.
Free cash.
Yeah, that's
Yep,
right.
That would. And, in the past, last year, particularly in the year before, where departments weren't spending as much, we did roll a lot more over. But I don't see that. I see a lot more budgets being restricted this year, so, and maybe even going over, so that's where we would come in and ask for some money.
Well,
We
fuels.
won't go over before we ask for the money, but I can project that it's going to, and then we would ask for
Fuel seems to be the key right now.
fuel,
Electricity,
yeah, legal costs, I mean, there's, yeah.
so.
So the replenishment of that would just be based on whether a particular year that we had more free cash, we replenish it, or is it?
So we've been doing 100,000, in our financial policies, it's supposed to be like 0.25% of the budget. So it should probably be increasing a little bit. It's not based on free cash. It will roll into free cash if we don't use it because it's unspent funds. But it is part of the levy. We're raising this on the levy.
We earmark it for contingencies, just like anything. This is just a broad, and we haven't used it in years, the last couple of years, but
Right, well, probably because we haven't been spending as much the last couple of years, right?
now with, we've got a couple months left here with fuel being what it is, they're finishing FY '22. Who knows with fuel and electricity what some of these bills are gonna be. So that could, we may need, say, 10 or 15 of it, and then whatever was unspent would go to free cash. And in past years, the whole roll over to free cash. That was part of that 3.4 million.
Exactly. Well, if no questions here, I'll move on. Not too exciting. So I wanted to go into our revenues. You've received this page in the past. This is the building block of the budget. And I kind of go over the stuff, I think, in the beginning.
Yep.
In the end, I guess it's.
Our levy is $25,986,000, which is our real estate tax levy and personal property tax.
We start out with the taxation, then we add the state aid. Actually, I think they just passed another round of the state aid. It's gone from the governors to, I saw an email come in, I haven't looked at it yet, so those numbers could change, but not before town meeting. This is what we're going with. But we do have that where they go through several rounds of changes before we get the final numbers in July or so. And hopefully they're higher, so we have a little bit of capacity, and then we use that in the tax rate, or if anything changes as we go forward. If we needed to do something at October town meeting, if we had capacity, that would be great.
You look at like Auburn, their levy's almost about 43 million. That's almost our budget. That's their, with their
Capacity?
business capacity and stuff, their personal property, their
That's crazy.
business and their real estate. that's almost
They have a
our
couple of
budget.
pretty dense main streets
Right,
throughout
so
them too.
that's why we keep talking about growing business, growing that tax levy, getting some more, getting it up from 20 to 30% to get that levy up.
Right.
That's the key to,
And then, you know, there's a conversation to be had about what you do with your levy, whether you leave some levy capacity, particularly in towns with a lot of industry. Leaving capacity is a good idea to help stabilize the tax rate for the residents, because, say, I know this happened in Westboro where they have a lot of industry, because they'll keep taxing personal property and it gets taxed again and again and again. It doesn't come off, it just gets retaxed.
funny you mentioned Westboro, their levy's 73 million,
Wow.
okay? That's almost double our whole
Yes.
budget. Yeah, that's their tax levy, that's the, you know, all the businesses
They
they
have a
have
lot of
around
They
Route
have a
9.
lot of businesses
Yeah,
there.
yeah, so they can afford things like police and fire that are more robust than what we have.
They
But-
also have higher value property.
And their real estate, the homes there are on the higher side of
Yeah.
state averages.
So one thing I would point out with the local revenue, I added here, what wasn't here last year, is, although I've put last year's figures there so we can see it balanced to the expenditures, we have the other funding sources to be appropriated. So last year was 970,000, this year 810,000. That is going to be your, well, you can see it down below. The ambulance, transfer from ambulance receipts reserved for appropriation, 790,000. Transfer from WRTA receipts reserved for appropriation, 20,000. And then we also added, again, under local revenue, the enterprise funds. So then we have raised through sewer enterprise receipts, raised through water enterprise receipts, and then transfer from water enterprise retained earnings. So in the past, we've gone through those budgets, we place a hold. So you have to rely on someone resident within the town government to place a hold, and then we've reduced the budget by those those receipts, which, as we go into some of the grant funding, and they say, "What's your budget?" It's like, "Oh, I've got to take this number and I've got to add this and I've got to add that." So we're not going to do that anymore. We're going to see the actual numbers.
So you see the number, then you do the reduction.
I don't have to do any reduction. It's all appropriation.
It's
So
all
there-
in here in the appropriation.
It's
so
an,
it comes
it's an
right out.
appropriation, it's never a reduction, so it was really just kind of artificially reducing a budget because it was trying to say this is not going to be tax levy, this is a different funding source. But it's not reducing the budget is still that whole number, but it was just very confusing. So I wanted to make sure we can go forward fluidly, especially as I have to report this to, you know, like the federal government, and I'm like, this is just crazy, I want to be clear. So.
Well, I know, like ambulance receipts, I think FY '21, we generated 1,155,000 rounded, was 154,9 something. So 1,100,000 in 1 year, ambulance receipts covered, so that bought the ambulance, and the balance covered the operational cost of, some of the operational costs of the fire department, 1,155,000.
Oh, right, and we're gonna do that this.
Large number, that was
we'll do
FY,
this
that was the
year.
last one. Well, I'm giving 20, because that's actual, 20.
So we're gonna do that this year as well, and actually, I'm gonna jump over, since we're talking about ambulance receipt, I'm gonna jump to the end and we'll come back here. But we're, as I said, so 790, that's gonna be used in the budget motion to offset the fire department, well, not to offset, that's,
And then
that's.
there's 300 for the ambulance that we.
Yeah, so then as we go to, oh, I'm sorry, the ambulance receipts, this is, someone had asked about the ambulance, I think in the last meeting, so I want to make sure I could show you where we're at. So the current fund balance, as of the day I did this, which was last week, the $1,206,782.39.
2 months to go.
We have 2 months to collect, we have March and April that weren't posted at that point. I can't count May and June because we can't appropriate what we don't have. So we're expecting to be able to be available for appropriation is the $1,331,782.39, of which we're using $790,000 for the fiscal '23 budget, $300 for the ambulance. So that should leave us with $241,000 to roll over to the
With
next
2
year.
months that you can't.
And then 2 months we'll add on to that for
because
next
you can't
year.
afford-
but-
You can't get ahead of yourself.
Exactly. So I wanted to highlight that since we mentioned, I'll go back.
Yeah, it was an eye-opener when I saw that, you know, it's,
Expensive to ride in an ambulance.
it is, and, yeah, not that you want to, right, but, yeah.
So I would, just to show you here then, so the total available for operations, the total revenue, $45,496,629 equals the total expenditures at the bottom. And then as you will see at the end of your sheet, the expenditure sheet at town meeting, it matches. So
Yeah,
that's, I mean, and before
always
there was a
good.
little reconciliation to get you there that said 0, like, oh, well, this does equal this, and so it's good. But this actually is the same number. So it's added in the state assessments and overlay here. So on the expenditure side, on the revenue side, we added in the other appropriations. Here, we're adding in state assessments and overlay to get our full expenditure total, and then that equals the full revenue total. So just so you know that those changes, it's different than prior years, but I think it is much clearer, and it'll,
The state's taken out school choice, 445,000, and charter school, 535. So they give you up above on chapter 70, up above, they give you 10,660,000, and then they take out. So on the one hand, they give you, and so you net out
Exactly.
about 9 million.
they give.
So
and they
that's how
take.
the deck chairs change.
Exactly. And then actually, if you'll see, there's the other offset state aid, the 32,963, that's both in revenue and expenditure, because it's, you know, you receive state aid, the library aid, and I thought it was the school choice. Those come in and then they go to separate funds. So they
Right.
come in as revenue, but they're expended too. So they're not actually adding or decreasing anything.
They're revenue neutral, but it just shows you that on the one hand, it comes in, on the other hand, you're mandated to apply it to X.
So do you have any more?
It's what Brittany was talking about. You have a minimum.
Yes.
You gotta apply.
So she can get that state aid that she gets.
You
Yes,
have
and
to-
that's very
You have to spend it
useful.
accordingly. Like grants, if you apply for a grant, you can't, whatever you apply for, you have to spend it for that item. You can't
Yes.
put it somewhere else.
What is excess levy reserve
So that is what we haven't spent in the levy
under the, okay.
as of this calculation. Because that can change as we go forward with future iterations of the state budget, and also as we find out our actual new growth and our actual overlay. So that number will change, but as of this budget, that's what's left over.
It's
And
kind
that-
of
town
hard.
meeting.
Now, does that wind up rolling into free cash?
No, levy
or-
capacity is actually another reserve, so,
Capacity, okay.
yeah, it's another reserve, it's what you're not taxing.
Okay.
Yeah, you can't go you can't overtax, so you have to
Right.
kind of hold back. You can't get ahead of yourself. So you kind of, there's a little buffer there, otherwise you run into issues with the state as far as your
So-
levy.
If you have any other questions here, otherwise I'll move on to local receipts, and then I think pretty much, then I think we move forward from there.
I just wanted to add, when Katie had said that the House budget had come out, a very unusual uptick significantly in this version of the House of Representatives budget is for charter school reimbursement. And that, for us, would amount to almost an $87,000 increase. And pretty much it's been the same every time the governor's budget has come out. And unrestricted aid was looking like they want to increase it by 61,000. So that would be a total increase potentially of 162,000, and then we'd have to look at our offsets. But that is a departure, because usually the House is pretty much very similar to the
Governor.
the governor, and so I've never seen that real uptick, and so I got a feeling that that may continue through into the Senate version as well.
And
Not
so-
a typo, right?
So as you, that would
just is
increase
hot off
our,
the press.
that would show our levy capacity at over 100,000 then. And, you know, right now,
Right.
based on the governor's numbers and this balanced budget, you have $3,374 remaining. But with this change, now we have, you know, somewhere around, you know, 100,000, 300,
Could be.
370, or potentially, depending on how the other numbers fall. And that's where that will fluctuate until we get to the setting of the tax rate.
Right, yeah, this is a budget.
We go
so
conservative.
We don't, yeah, we try to be conservative, because if you don't want to
You
be,
don't wanna
want
go
to
the
be
other way.
short. Now, it's
No.
160,000, there you are. They're
Right.
going to take away from
But
charter
that can
schools.
change depending on how many kids this year, you know,
That's the
go
other
out
thing,
to a
too.
charter school, how many children are coming to Oxford for receiving tuition reimbursement. Those are the ones
Or
where we
leaving.
have to reconcile.
And then
Yeah.
who leaves, so that's why this is a budget, this isn't the actual, so that's how so you have to be very, very careful, because you don't want to be, with the state, you don't want to, and then, of course, they don't, like this town manager just said, every day they're changing stuff. So today you're fine, tomorrow you're not. So it's a moving thing. And then we don't get our cherry sheets, Now, our FY '23 is July 1st. Historically, the state, over the last few years, do not provide us exactly with what they're doing. And we're in fall meeting in October, and we still don't know, or they still can't tell us.
That was one year was an anomaly, but usually it's July. So you were already into our new fiscal year,
Before you
though.
knew what was going to happen.
Yeah, exactly.
So that's really, they tell you, they hold your feet to the fire, but then they don't tell you what the fire is.
Exactly. So those are the revenues, the expenditures agree, and then this is my page from the GFOA document for the local receipts, updated for our fiscal '23 budget. And you can see that I increased motor vehicle excise a little bit. I'm a little hesitant because we've had such a, there's been such a shortage in vehicles due to the chip shortage and transportation shortage, everything, right? The other thing about motor vehicle excise that's interesting this year is that, if you're the people that are buying vehicles are buying them at a substantially higher cost, but excise is based on the sticker price. So although folks are paying over sticker, we're going to get taxes based on the sticker price. I think that will change going forward. So fiscal '23, I think the sticker prices are going to be going up. But we have to realize that if folks haven't been able to buy new cars over the last couple of years, the excises we receive are going to be a couple years older, and there's a reduction each year of the
Right.
car until it gets to 10% of value. So, and I think that takes 5 years.
Yeah.
So,
So you're starting out negative.
we just have to be careful because we were, fiscal '20 actual was high, and I think that was actually, the auditor had said we were the only town that saw an increase that year. And then we dropped in '21 actual, and '22, I think we're gonna be okay because we picked up some of the stuff from '21. So I think we will meet what we budgeted for '22. So '23 will probably be okay, but we just have to be careful. That's the main thing. And you can see all the other items there. The only other item I really want to mention is the Cannabis Impact Fee, which has been substantial. You see fiscal '21 actual is $360,000, so it's been substantial. But we took it out of the '22 budget and the '23 budget because, as the Cannabis Control Commission said in the beginning, that this was potentially just a 5-year fee. So I don't think we should be relying on it in our local receipts as we go forward. I think we need to kind of try to deviate from that.
So explain that 5 year, in other words, we're not going to see the money after 5 years, the state's going to,
I don't think there's any decision on that, but if you go into the regulations in the cannabis control,
Yeah.
they've got to make some kind of decision at the 5-year mark. So when these first cannabis
Receipts.
facilities came out, the host agreements had an impact fee in them, and you could collect on them for 5 years, or the agreement was for 5 years.
Just so you know, for the ones that I have worked to negotiate and then the Board of Selectmen adopted by vote, I typically had also put in verbiage to try to get the company to agree that before the expiration of that host agreement, that they would be willing to carry over the similar financial indicators that were put in there.
so it doesn't disappear.
So we would hope it wouldn't, unless the state makes some complete prohibition of it. But even then, agreements that are consummated at the local level should be able to withstand any kind of legal challenge because, it's between two parties. And so, but I do agree with Katie's assessment that you really just shouldn't bank on it. It's not like, any other kind of receipt that we have coming in that's already guaranteed and is gonna be there. Once we hear that and we see that with the industry overall, then that's fine.
I worry about the state, like when the police chief was talking about gun permits, and he was left with $7,000, and he did all the work, all the background checks, and the state took out of the $31,023.
Right.
Wouldn't want to see a similar thing happen. We get the $360,000, but the state says, well, we'll leave you $100, and we're going to take the $260.
Or they'll just
That's
say you
what I
can't,
fear.
or they'll say you can't have these
Or you can't
particular
have it.
piece of agreements within your agreement. That's something that they may
Yeah.
rule on.
Yeah.
So I just want to go by what the Cannabis Control Commission has said in terms of estimating local receipts. As we're cautious with motor vehicle and meals excise and cannabis excise.
Now, if we were to get another facility, we're allowed, I think, one more.
Oh,
That would start the clock over for that facility for 5
we
years.
have host agreements for non-retail
Yeah.
facilities too. So
Yeah.
cultivation,
Yeah.
manufacturing.
But that would
we
start,
can under-
that would be a 5-year from that point
Yes,
for that
yes,
new business.
Exactly, exactly. There's another piece that's not in here that will be something that will be a long-term type of receipt, I would say, in terms of a legal, the nationwide class action suit against the opioid manufacturers. When I first came here, this town had not joined in the lawsuit, and I discovered that, and I asked legal counsel to make sure that we could join that. It was a lot of work upfront because you had to provide a lot of different data and to support the desire of the community and the fact that it had been impacted. So I will tell you that they're getting very close. The Attorney General obviously has been negotiating a separate type of settlement, and all in all, we do expect that we'll get some money. I know once upon a time, Corinna had talked about wanting to have more opportunities for counseling in lieu of just enforcement with our law enforcement officers. But in particular for opioids, we would more than likely have to have something that we use that money towards. So it could be education at the school level, all that kind of stuff. But it could be very substantial, not a small amount of money. So it could be as much as $55,000 to $65,000 a year. And so that could actually, help us, do some other kinds of programming. But until we actually see the dollars come in, I've been signing all this paperwork, but it's around the corner, and it should be in the future years. But that could extend out for another 15 years, each year getting that.
So until the state makes
Decides,
the
right.
state
Yeah.
has to talk
We're
about
not
how
putting
that.
it in here.
The state,
No,
well,
you
the-
can't put it in
Well,
because
the state could, if this is something that every community is getting, they could tell you to put it here, like they did with the impact fee.
Oh,
This
sure.
is driven by the state. So until then, it's probably either going to go under miscellaneous, non-recurring or reoccurring, depending, it could go recurring if it's 15 years. And then we would budget for it each year, or it could go under non-recurring if it's just a one-time thing. But the state usually gives advisories on revenue streams that affect multiple towns, many towns. Another thing I wanted to point out here is that under departmental fees, you can see that in the fiscal '23 budget, it's gone from 57,522 to 238,000 in '23. And what that is the building revolving fund. There's a lot of fees there that were going into the building revolving that the state has recently put out informational guideline release stating that your revolving funds are supposed to offset a particular purpose. So your money comes in for that purpose and it goes out for the same purpose. And no, it's not supposed to fund operations, which is exactly what we were doing with the building, the building, not improvement fund, that's different, the building inspector fund and the Board of Health fund. Now, the Board of Health fund does have some of those programmatic fees, so like septic installation. So there's a fee for it and there's an expense for it. And in some cases, we have the Board of Health agent that will cover that expense, so there will just be the fee. But since it's a programmatic fee and expense, that can go into revolving, because it revolves. You take the money in and it goes out, you take the money in and it goes out. So if it's not doing that, they said you can't offset, essentially you can't offset a budget with it. You can't use it for operations. So therefore, it needs to go into local receipts. So that's why that is.
higher.
And you'll, if you remember, on the revenue sheet, we had the ambulance receipts and we had WRTA. We didn't have the other two that we usually have. So that's been eliminated as an offset, but it's here. So it's still working through and
Still,
offsetting
the
the
money's
budget.
there, it's just not being applied directly
categorized
to the
differently.
department.
It's just we're reporting it to the state now and we're not using it as an other fund.
Same thing with animal control, you used to offset.
Correct, but they have their revolving fund on the side that they are, using it to offset, their operation,
But you can't show that, it's gotta
Well-
be receipts.
Yeah, I mean, they're using it to offset particular purposes of their operation, so.
Right.
It's not used to offset it in the budget anymore, so.
Right.
So I think that is the highlights of the local receipts. I don't know if you had any questions on that while it's up.
So that's just shifting, basically, deck chairs again,
It-
basically, yeah.
Yeah, you got it.
You're moving from one line, from
It's just a
netting out a department expense to putting it in local receipts. Yeah.
Yep, so, and right now, this year, I think we're with miscellaneous expenses that have come in, the cannabis impact fee and everything else that's come in so far this year, I think we're about 600,000 in the positive, so. And we have effectively a quarter to go, because that was as of the end of February, I didn't have the end of March. So I have April, May, and June to go. So that's that for local receipts, and we went over ambulance receipts, so that's it for my slides. But I did want to talk about, and with Jen here, we can kind of go over the pay plan, and, you know, where we met, we both were there with the human resource specialist, with the personnel board, and if you recall, we did not have an increase to the pay plan for fiscal '22. So we kept the fiscal '21 pay plan in place, which I believe was a 2% increase at that time for '21. '22, 0%, you know, other than step increases. And actually, those were on hold for a while until we knew all the figures were in. So going forward, we went in front of the personnel board with, a proposal. And so they went forward with the 3% increase on the pay plan, which is effectively like 1.5% if you want to space it out over the 2 years. And as we know, inflation is looking at, close to 8%
More than that.
now. So,
Being retired, Social Security was 5.9 for me this year, so I fared better. That's a hell of a thing to
Well,
say, but,
Can't all be so lucky, John.
Right.
yeah, I know. If
Right.
you can make it to 65, I guess. But, yeah, so last year was 0.
right,
Now,
right,
this year it's 3%,
right,
Yeah.
which is basically over 2 years, 1.5%.
correct.
And you have to bear in mind that COVID has taken a big hit on a lot of the energy levels of staff over a period of time. And all you have to do is look into the Mass Municipal website, and you see people moving all over the place. Some of it is people just feel like they need a change. Things are very stressful and wherever they were working. I think for us to maintain our workforce and the employees that we have to also make them feel valued. And we can do that through our job performance reviews and through recognition of competitive salaries when you're recruiting and looking to hire people. But you can also do it with the current employees and making sure that at least, you don't have other communities that are in the area that are doing more than you are. And so this is not exorbitant. We can definitely afford it, and I would always argue that you can't afford not to do it at key times. The staff understood when we were looking at what was on the horizon for COVID. Everybody hunkered down and knew that it was very, very serious, and the state was projecting these huge losses due to unemployment and not being able to have the workforce generating all kinds of receipts for the state. And lo and behold, people who were home actually did all kinds of projects in their houses and bought all kinds of things online, and it generated a whole, industrial response and manufacturing response that totally, did not hurt the communities. And so, but we're in a different time period now, and but our revenues are solid, and we can do this.
And that's all for me, anyway,
a question.
unless you have questions.
Yeah, on levels and steps, just, I look at the footnotes. I always when I look at a annual report, look at the numbers for about 2 minutes, and I spend an hour and a half on the footnotes. So that's always in the footnotes. So I'm looking at your revenue schedule, and on new hires, 1 year from data hire, satisfactory review of department heads, 1 year from promotion, satisfactory review of department heads, current employee, 1 year from reclassification, satisfactory review of department head, and then levels 1 through 5, well, they're the same, well, whatever. Annual review, 1 year from data hire, satisfactory review, biannual review, that's my question.
Yes.
So at a 2-year employment mark, then you're reviewing the employee every 6 months? Or what is that, every other year? Every other year?
So, well, in the pay plan, so, yeah, so there's different steps there. So it depends where they land. I think there's some verbiage there about, how you do it within the first year. But if your first year, you're step 5, you're not getting a review for 2 years. I mean, when I was hired beyond a step 5. So it said in my hire letter that I won't have a review for 2 years, because that's how the pay plan is. After step 5 and beyond, it's every 2 years. We're looking hopefully to change that down the road and go annually, as we did with the DPW, but we're not there yet. Right now, as it stands, you've got an annual review from steps 1 to 4, and 5 and beyond is every other year.
Every other year, that's what I was trying to understand.
Yeah.
So we, I think I've said it before, that we have to build the capacity and then we address different time periods, depending on what's going on with our workforce. So we hadn't had a reclassification, we didn't even have a pay plan that would adequately reflected our DPW. So despite being in the middle of COVID, the prior finance committee members and the current ones that are still here understood that that was the big ask, to sort of make our DPW, feel valued, and that they weren't still working under the classification guidelines that were put in the 1970s, and that's what it was. So we spent a whole year working as a huge team with a lot of employees and everything. Everyone felt the, plan we put together was great. We did all of that, and we recognized back then there was the issues about how frequent their reviews would be. And, Jared and also prior to that, Sean always wanted to make that change. And so what we thought it was imprudent is, as we're looking across the whole spectrum, all of our employees, some of these things are holdovers, right? Getting up to a step 5 and not needing a review for 2 years. And so, but, we have to try to make all of these things. We used to have all kinds of different figures in between the pay plan steps that Katie had to fix when she came in, to make things more uniform. So some of that means that we have to work hand in glove with our employees so that they understand we're making some of these changes. And we used to have, people had to work an entire year before they earned a vacation day. I mean, that was just crazy.
Wasn't prorated.
I'm just saying, nobody could take, you couldn't even earn
Earn.
the
Earn.
time, and use it
First year
until
was-
after you're done.
You invested
And-
first year.
Right, but
until you were
that,
vested.
those days are gone.
Yeah, I
mean,
think I
it's
almost
just-
cried when I heard I had 20 hours I could use within the first year, based on
Employees-
however, I was like, what? I've got a daughter going to college, like,
Yeah,
I can't do that.
So we went to accrual methods, and there's a whole.
Now you got to accrue, you're right.
Yeah,
that you're
so
vested
there are
in.
all these things that we've gone to the personnel board
Well,
to
the big-
change, because it hurts our ability to recruit, retain, and it also was just very devaluing in terms of management structure.
Well, skill sets are huge. I mean, as an employee matures and they acquire new skills, that has to be recognized somewhere in the pay plan. I mean, I always try to stay away from titles, because a controller here and a controller there, they're different skill sets. Because this guy, his title's controller, but he's really also a treasurer. He also does other things. He manages, or she manages, the investments. So that hat is different than somebody over here that doesn't do that. But they both have the same title. So skill sets are huge. And that, and then when you're trying to compare with other communities, you really got to forget their title and get to what the skill sets are, so that you're competitive or stay competitive with other communities trying to match skill sets. That's key.
There's some variation within titles, but I think generally the treasurer collector does the same thing in most towns. I mean, there will be some variations. Some finance directors are treasurer collectors, not accountants. Like, I'm the town accountant and the finance director, where other towns, the finance director might be finance director / treasurer collector. Those would be very different.
Right. And that's why when you're looking to be competitive within surrounding communities, you really got to take your goggles off and
Benefits are
really look at.
important to employees,
Yeah,
and rightfully so, right? Everybody has a family, everybody has, a need for health insurance and a need for dental insurance, and so those kinds of things. But I think it was good to kind of share that with you, even though there is another board that oversees a lot of that. It gives you a little perspective, because a lot has changed, and some of you weren't here. And when people talk about how fast some of the changes we've done, some of them are just absolutely essential. They actually are shocking sometimes when we come across something, we say, oh my God, we gotta change this.
Well, that biannual caught my eye. That's why I wanted to have that discussion. I said, I'm looking at,
Yep.
I can glary-eyed over the grids and the SCEPs and the levels, but when I saw that, I said, well, just explain that to me.
Yep.
Okay, there we go.
All right, very good.
Well, thank
Any
you.
other questions?
Yeah, I do.
Go ahead.
So biannual, does that mean they only get raises biannually?
Other than the COLA.
Okay.
So this year with the 3%, everyone on July 1st will get what their level and step is in the new pay plan, which should be 3% higher, if all is equal. Some folks come in between steps, so it can change a little bit, but generally, if you're at this step and level, it's gonna be, this step and level in the new pay plan is gonna be 3% increase. So if you, aren't due for your next step increase for another 2 years, you still get that COLA on 7/1.
So they step up every two.
After level 5, or step 5, rather. Not level, step.
Do the department managers keep like an award budget for them? They can give out a $25 gift card for somebody that does something great or something stupid like that?
That type of stuff is
So-
tricky.
morale.
So municipal government doesn't allow you to do certain things, right? You
Yeah, it's
cannot
tricky.
buy funeral flowers for somebody because state law prohibits certain aspects of being used. However, if it's within, staffing and staff development, there's much more leeway, but usually tied to that recognition. So we didn't have a human resource department. We do now. And we have somebody who I work with closely to make sure we do those kinds of recognitions, not just on retirement, but we're doing a lot more group training type of activities and development activities. And yes, we will do small efforts to reward employees. And, we've had some, I call it enthusiastic kinds of events to try to bring people together because it is very hard. Everyone has very unique roles, just like when you were asking about IT and who trains who. If you were to ask me what goes into the complete, software for the collector treasurer, not using it every day, we wouldn't know. And, the way that Trish has to look at the accounting software, very different. So we are all in our silos, but yet we all have to work together because every department, is connected. So we do much more of that. We're also talking about looking at potential time periods with more designated training. Even though we're doing more training than we have across all of the departments, we want to even do more because that helps bond too, because different types of professional development are there. So the answer is yes, in a modified way, but not as much as I would like. But
Well, you're limited. I mean, the
Yeah.
state tells you what you
Right.
can do.
private sector, you wouldn't be as limited, but in the public sector, you are. For different
It's nice
reasons.
if, say Trish or you, Katie, got a certification from a particular piece of software, and then another certification the following year, then that your skill set accrues. So, say, Auburn's looking to hire someone, or Webster or somebody, they're looking at what your skill set is. Oh, geez, we use that software too. Oh, you're certified in this, and that's where I come back to skill sets as far as the value of your training and the relevance to the community, what that value is on those certifications and those training things, as opposed to another community trying to attract somebody from us.
Well, a classic example of, we just had 80 employees take advantage of CPR training in both the schools and the municipal side on their own. I was here on a Friday afternoon with a number of other people for 4 hours, and it was wonderful. Yep, she was my, I call it the dummy partner, because we had the dummies. We had the dummies that we had to do,
Partner with the
not
dummy.
Trish is not dumb, very brilliant woman. But it was kind of, and we did it at the community center. But again, that's something that the employee took on their own, and they didn't have to do that. And, but we recognize that we at least could offer it to them. But that might be like one of those things where we think about doing those unique kinds of recognitions in the future.
Are you competent or relatively competent that we're staying competitive with other communities? Because I worry about.
No, I don't think I'm not confident in certain key areas. I think, in certain parts of our, and I think we've had discussions about that in terms of fire and EMS, and I'm in the process right now of looking at dispatches again. At one point in time, 3 years ago, I can't believe I'm already renegotiating another contract. We were really bottom of the barrel. The chief and I looked at the whole thing and lifted everybody up, and everybody around us saw that, so that's that whole mechanism too. So they're already in their first or second year of their contracts, so now we're looking to that to make sure that we can retain people, because those are very unusual jobs as well, so.
Yeah, they're critical.
So it's a constant looking at and evaluating, and it's not just in those areas, it's in a lot of areas, and it's, you can see communities struggle. We struggled for a while just to try to get a director for public health, and one that's a sanitarian, registered sanitarian, and it was amazing because it didn't matter how many places we put out, and that was in the middle of COVID, and now it's really like, Now it's everybody needs one of these people, and so we're lucky that we have who we have right now, and, you know, but there's no guarantees that the next thing isn't gonna be the next shortage. The MMA and currently the Lieutenant Governor, everybody recognized that municipal occupations, there is a huge problem that everybody's facing with retirements in succession planning. We just don't have people who can just walk into these roles. And some people who might be a regular accountant on the outside, I think Katie would tell you, municipal finance is
Different.
extremely
Different.
different.
It's a
It's almost like a foreign
Yeah,
territory.
it's a
at
different
times.
form of government.
Without, understanding all the statutes that you have to
Right.
comply with. And so if you can get somebody who's already doing that, that's great. You take a risk and a ramp-up time period, which could be very difficult for a community when you bring someone in who doesn't have that. And same thing with human resources. The school has struggled a number of times trying to recruit people in that vein, and we had as well until we, you know, have been able to bring on Joanne. But it's like everybody doesn't always have all of the components that you're looking for, so you have to build capacity in each
Grow,
employee.
right, you have to grow from within.
But
Which
it's a good question.
That's your training budget, yeah, and investing in people.
Yes.
But I mean, I look at the Beacon, and there's like 4 pages of different communities for this, that, and the other thing. Everything from a town manager to a dog catcher, you name it, it runs the gamut. I mean, it's pages and pages of
Yeah.
people looking for people in their community. It's eye-opening when you look at the Beacon. All right, any other questions, town manager, Katie? Now, that being said, what we have to do, this is a procedural vote. I want to say that up front for everybody that's listening. We're going to be voting on each department. You have a presentation order vote in front of you. I'm going to read the amount, the department and the amount. I'm going to look for a motion in a second, and then do we have to do a roll call, Tris, on each one of these, or?
I don't think it's a roll call.
I
don't
wanna
think
make
you have to
sure-
vote.
It's, I mean,
And a recording of the vote for
yeah,
each
you
one.
don't have
We
to
did
do.
last time.
We did it on the capital requests, so I was just, that's why, that was my question. We did a roll call.
I think we've got some holdovers from COVID going on too. You know, when we were doing Zoom, you had to actually
Well, I
every
think,
single.
and I think the selectmen do a roll call for every vote, but that's just their style, right?
Well, I don't want to, but
Whatever you're comfortable with, it doesn't matter. You can do
we can
it
do a
that way.
roll call. I mean,
Sure.
it's up to you, Trish. I mean, it's on your shoulders. But the other thing, if there's any questions, I know we've reviewed, again, for everyone
reviewed the
that's
minutes.
listening. We've gone through this. I don't want to, we're going to run through this, and I don't want, and I say run, but choose that word. However, if there's anybody on the committee here tonight that wants to voice a concern or has an opinion or an observation, before I move on to the next one, feel free to let me recognize you, and then feel free to ask your question or whatever your concern may be. If not, we're going to go through these, because we've already had lengthy conversations on each one of these where you were all afforded an opportunity to ask questions or ally your concerns. So, that being said, I'll start with moderator budget, $1,800. Do I hear a motion to approve?
So moved.
Do I hear a second? Second. Any comments or questions on the moderator budget? If none, roll call.
Mr. Yule?
Yes.
Ms. Casey?
Yes.
Mr. McLaughlin?
Yes.
Mr. Steiner?
Yes.
Ms. Frick?
Yes.
Ms. Mazeka?
Yes.
Next item is the Selectmen's budget, $38,650. Do I hear a motion to approve?
So moved.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
All right, roll call. No discussion.
Yule?
Yes.
Ms. Casey?
Abstain.
Abstain?
Mr. McLaughlin?
Yes.
Mr. Steiner?
Yes.
Ms. Frick?
Yes.
Ms. Mazeka?
Yes.
Okay, next item is the town manager's budget, $484,111. Do I hear a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Any discussion? If none, roll call.
Mr. Yule?
Yes.
Ms. Casey?
Yes.
Mr. McLaughlin?
Yes.
Mr. Steiner?
Yes.
Ms. Frick?
Yes.
Ms. Mazeka?
Yes.
Next item is the finance committee budget, $101,300. Do I hear a motion to approve?
So moved.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
Any discussion? If none, roll call.
Mr. Yule?
Yes.
Ms. Casey?
Yes.
Mr. McLaughlin?
Yes.
Mr. Steiner?
Yes.
Ms. Frick?
Yes.
Ms. Mazeka?
Yes.
Point of question, you have these all highlighted. Do I just go for the total, or do we want to do
We're going
each
to vote on, at town meeting, the finance department total. So
total?
Yep.
Okay, so the total for the finance department is $1,152,754. Do I hear a motion to approve the total?
So moved.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
Any discussion? If none, roll call.
Mr. Yule?
Yes.
Ms. Casey?
Yes.
Mr. McLaughlin?
Yes.
Mr. Steiner?
Yes.
Ms. Frick?
Yes.
Ms. Mazeka?
Yes.
Next item is legal services budget for $125,000. Do I hear a motion to approve?
So moved.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
Any discussion? If none, roll call.
Mr. Yule?
Yes.
Ms. Casey?
Yes.
Mr. McLaughlin?
Yes.
Mr. Steiner?
Yes.
Ms. Frick? Ms. Mazeka?
Yes.
Next department is HR Personnel Board budget of $198,602. Do I hear a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Any comments? If none, roll call.
Mr. Yule?
Yes.
Ms. Casey?
Yes.
Mr. McLaughlin?
Yes.
Mr. Steiner?
Yes.
Ms. Frick?
Yes.
Ms. Mazeka?
Yes.
Next item is town clerk budget, $235,893. Do I hear a motion to approve?
So moved.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
Any discussion? If none, roll call.
Mr. Yule?
Yes.
Ms. Casey?
Yes.
Mr. McLaughlin?
Yes.
Mr. Steiner?
Yes.
Ms. Frick?
Yes.
Ms. Mazeka?
Yes.
Next item is land management budget, $465,607. Do I hear a motion to approve?
So moved.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
Any comment? None? Roll call.
Mr. Yule?
Yes.
Ms. Casey?
Yes.
Mr. McLaughlin?
Yes.
Mr. Steiner?
Yes.
Ms. Frick?
Yes.
Ms. Mazeka?
Yes.
Next item is Memorial Hall budget, $171,900. Do I hear a motion to approve?
So moved.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
No comment? If none, roll call.
Mr. Yule?
Yes.
Ms. Casey?
Yes.
Mr. McLaughlin?
Yes.
Mr. Steiner?
Yes.
Ms. Frick?
Yes.
Ms. Mazeka?
Yes.
Next item is the police department budget, $2,815,818. Do I hear a motion to approve?
So moved.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
Any comments? If none, roll call.
Mr. Yule?
Yes.
Ms. Casey?
Abstain.
Mr. McLaughlin?
Yes.
Mr. Steiner?
Yes.
Ms. Frick?
Yes.
Ms. Mazeka?
Yes.
Okay, next item is EMS fire department budget, $2,149,686. Do I hear a motion to approve?
So moved.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
Any comments or discussion? If none, roll call.
Mr. Yule?
Yes.
Ms. Casey?
Yes.
Mr. McLaughlin?
Yes.
Mr. Steiner?
Yes.
Ms. Frick?
Yes.
Ms. Mazeka?
Yes.
The EOC budget is $3,889. Do I hear a motion to approve?
So moved.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
Any comments? If none, roll call.
Mr. Yule?
Yes.
Ms. Casey?
Yes.
Mr. McLaughlin?
Yes.
Mr. Steiner?
Yes.
Ms. Frick?
Yes.
Ms. Mazeka?
Yes.
Next item is animal control budget, $86,926. Do I hear a motion to approve?
So moved.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
Any comments? If none, roll call.
Mr. Yule?
Yes.
Ms. Casey?
Yes.
Mr. McLaughlin?
Yes.
Mr. Steiner?
Yes.
Ms. Frick?
Yes.
Ms. Mazeka?
Yes.
Next item is the Department of Public Works budget, $3,524,437. Do I hear a motion to approve?
So moved.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
Any comments? If none, roll call.
Mr. Yule?
Yes.
Ms. Casey?
Yes.
Mr. McLaughlin?
Yes.
Mr. Steiner?
Yes.
Ms. Frick?
Yes.
Ms. Mazeka?
Yes.
Next item is municipal utilities budget for $435,000. Do I hear a motion to approve?
So moved.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
Any comments? If none, roll call.
Mr. Yule?
Yes.
Ms. Casey?
Yes.
Mr. McLaughlin?
Yes.
Mr. Steiner?
Yes.
Ms. Frick?
Yes.
Ms. Mazeka?
Yes.
Next item is council on aging budget for $183,535. Do I hear a motion to approve?
So moved.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
Any comments? If none, roll call.
Mr. Yule?
Yes.
Ms. Casey?
Yes.
Mr. McLaughlin?
Yes.
Mr. Steiner?
Yes.
Ms. Frick?
Yes.
Ms. Mazeka?
Yes.
Next item is veteran service budget for $239,408. Do I hear a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Any discussion? If none, roll call.
Mr. Yule?
Yes.
Ms. Casey?
Yes.
Mr. McLaughlin?
Yes.
Mr. Steiner?
Yes.
Ms. Frick?
Yes.
Ms. Mazeka?
Yes.
Next item is the library budget, $505,333. Do I hear a motion to approve?
So moved.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
Any discussion? If none, roll call.
Mr. Yule?
Yes.
Ms. Casey?
Yes.
Mr. McLaughlin?
Yes.
Mr. Steiner?
Abstain.
Ms. Frick?
Yes.
Ms. Mazeka?
Yes.
Next item is community center budget, $290,869. Do I hear a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Any discussion? If none, roll call.
Mr. Yule?
Yes.
Ms. Casey?
Yes.
Mr. McLaughlin?
Yes.
Mr. Steiner?
Yes.
Ms. Frick?
Yes.
Ms. Mazeka?
Yes.
Next item is the historical commission budget, $1,650. Do I hear a motion to approve?
So moved.
Hear a second?
Second.
Any discussion? If none, roll call.
Mr. Yule?
Yes.
Ms. Casey?
Yes.
Mr. McLaughlin?
Yes.
Mr. Steiner?
Yes.
Ms. Frick?
Yes.
Ms. Mazeka?
Yes.
Next item is the celebration budget, $9,500. Do I hear a motion to approve?
So moved.
Hear a second?
Second.
Any discussion? If none, roll call.
Mr. Yule?
Yes.
Ms. Casey?
Yes.
Mr. McLaughlin?
Yes.
Mr. Steiner?
Yes.
Ms. Frick?
Yes.
Ms. Mazeka?
Yes.
Next item is the debt service budget, $1,398,033. Do I hear a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Any discussion? If none, roll call.
Mr. Yule?
Yes.
Ms. Casey?
Yes.
Mr. McLaughlin?
Yes.
Mr. Steiner?
Yes.
Ms. Frick?
Yes.
Ms. Mazeka?
Yes.
Next item is employee benefits budget, $7,971,462. Do I hear a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Any discussion? If none, roll call.
Mr. Yule?
Yes.
Ms. Casey?
Yes.
Mr. McLaughlin?
Yes.
Mr. Steiner?
Yes.
Ms. Frick?
Yes.
Ms. Mazeka?
Yes.
Next item is sewer enterprise budget, $462,051. Do I hear a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Any comment? If none, roll call.
Mr. Yule?
Yes.
Ms. Casey?
Yes.
Mr. McLaughlin?
Yes.
Mr. Steiner?
Yes.
Ms. Frick?
Yes.
Ms. Mazeka?
Yes.
Next item is water enterprise budget, $89,229. Do I hear a motion to approve?
So moved.
Hear a second?
Second.
Any discussion? If none, roll call.
Mr. Yule?
Yes.
Ms. Casey?
Yes.
Mr. McLaughlin?
Yes.
Mr. Steiner?
Yes.
Ms. Frick?
Yes.
Ms. Mazeka?
Yes.
Next item is the Oxford Public School Department budget, $19,339,254. Do I hear a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Any discussion? If none, roll call.
Mr. Yule?
Yes.
Ms. Casey?
Yes.
Mr. McLaughlin?
Yes.
Mr. Steiner?
Yes.
Ms. Frick?
Yes.
Ms. Mazeka?
Yes.
Next item is Baypath budget, $1,578,032. Do I hear a motion to approve?
So moved.
Hear a second?
Second.
Any discussion? If none, roll call.
Mr. Yule?
Yes.
Ms. Casey?
Yes.
Mr. McLaughlin?
Yes.
Mr. Steiner?
Yes.
Ms. Frick?
Yes.
Ms. Mazeka?
Yes.
Well, that concludes the FY23 departmental approval of the budget for FY23. And I want to thank everybody for your patience going through all that, having done it for 17 meetings, I guess. Department request, if there aren't, committee request, if there are none. Next meeting is going to be April 20th. My understanding is the board of selectmen has to approve the articles on the warrant at their next Tuesday meeting. Our meeting next Wednesday, following their approval, would be to review those articles and make our recommendation for town meeting at that meeting.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
Just so you know, the Board of Selectmen did vote to approve the warrant, subject to the final review of legal counsel.
Legal counsel.
We didn't know if we were going to be able to get the majority of it done based on the feedback we were getting from legal counsel. So they took the opportunity last night. So if you decide that you want to have a meeting sooner than that, you can do that. The warrant will be, it's not yet posted because we're waiting on this final detail. But if you've already got it, selected in that area, that's fine. I just wanted you to know that we did it a little bit earlier. I mean, we keep trying to, improve processes, but we never know what we're gonna get for warrant articles.
I know wording is crucial, because then it
Sure.
still goes to the Attorney General of the state, and they tell you what you have.
Yes, and we do.
Make sure you use the right adjectives and
Yeah.
commas. But the other thing is, to afford the committee an opportunity to look at the articles and ask
That
questions.
would give enough time.
Give them enough time.
Yep.
If we could get a draft out
Yeah.
of the articles between now and next Wednesday, so that everybody could come prepared to look at the articles and have their questions, so we can go through them next Wednesday's meeting.
Yep, quickly.
I think by Friday,
Expeditiously,
legal counsel
right.
will have signed off and
So
hopefully
that,
we'll have it.
right, because you may have questions of some of these articles, whether
Yeah.
whether it's germane to us making a recommendation or not, or what the financial dollar amount. I like to see on every article what the dollar equivalent of that particular article is.
I don't know, I had to vote.
You know, like,
I had to
if
vote
this
a whole
article is
warrant last night.
51,000, or this article has
Before the meeting.
has some dollar amount to it as well.
Sometimes
At the
when
meeting.
we are doing the
May not.
motions, we don't do that until it gets closer to town meeting, because some of it,
Right.
like she said, ambulance receipts and things like that come in, and
Waiting for a total.
we're,
Right.
so.
But even an estimate would
Oh,
be
no,
something.
I
so that
think
we-
some of them we have an idea, so
Yeah.
ones we know, we'll definitely.
get
And then,
Yeah.
or an estimate, so that we understand what, if we're making a recommendation, there's some dollar.
Yes.
In those words, there's a dollar amount lurking in there, so we have an understanding of what we're recommending and what the dollar impact's
Of
gonna
course.
be.
Yeah, no, I'll,
I'll give you an
So that everybody's
example that's.
prepared for the meeting. I mean, I want everybody on the committee
Yes.
to be up to speed, so they're not seeing it Wednesday night
No,
for the
we
first
won't
time.
do that.
well, that's what they did to me last night. I was like,
As a selectman.
Yeah,
I
I
have to
know.
sign this warrant, I haven't looked at it, can you give me a minute?
I don't want, well, that's not fair to us, as
it
members
wasn't
of the
fair to-
committee.
no, it
Or
wasn't
fair to
fair at
anybody,
all.
for
I
that
get it.
matter. But so that we can have a dialogue and we can have a discussion, so that we go to town meeting, we've done our due diligence, and we can look people in the eye and say, we've had a conversation, and we're on board, or we're not on board, or we're not, we
Yeah,
don't think
this
it's
is
good
our,
enough.
this is our Super Bowl, town
Yeah.
meeting's the Super Bowl for municipal, finance and municipal administration, and on top of that, we have, our annual report that we're pulling together, and
Yeah,
ours does
it's a
not
lot.
look like a lot of other communities, it's wonderful looking, and we have the GFOA document we're pulling together, and then all of the materials, that we use at, town meeting, we've obviously revamped them over the last several years, so it's a huge endeavor.
Yes, it is.
Where we're lucky we have people who are talented internally to help us actually with graphics and things like that. And then, putting together all the slides. We do a totally different town meeting than what it used to be. And I'm so proud of that. We can't do it without the support of this committee, the Personnel Board, the Board of Selectmen. And we are trying to allow for as much transparency and education of the public in advance. But, like anything, there's always going to be those, time periods where
Right
someone
now,
will
there's
say.
so many unknowns going forward.
We'll always have someone who says,
Yeah.
I didn't know town meeting was there. And, you'll always have somebody that will say that. And, if they could only see how all the improvements we've made.
I actually
it's just-
heard that.
It's stunning. It really is.
A member of the community who was born and raised here and sends their kids to school here said to me a week ago, they weren't aware of when town meeting was. In other words, it's the first Wednesday of May. And they lived there, and I was aghast by that comment, but that person now that person's aware of it, but was not all this time. It's scary. I think that. All right,
We'll do our part to do it as much as possible.
well, and we're just trying to be transparent here, and I want to make sure everybody on the committee here
Has that.
has an opportunity to,
We'll get it to you.
have time to look at it. All right, that being said, can I hear a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Okay, all in favor? Aye?
Aye.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you.
Thank you.